I'm Cindy Jovanovski. I'm the president of the Fibromyalgia Support Group here in Michigan, but recently, not too long ago, we accepted members from different states and across the USA and including Canada as well, because we know that fibro is not just in Michigan, it's all over the US and stuff. So and our meetings are in Zoom and I find it useful. Hi, Susan. Susan popped in late, and Bob and
I'm the
Janet.
Canadian connection.
Nice to see you guys. We have a big turnout
Yep,
today. I'm surprised. I'm glad too. So I was
yep.
just introducing
Hello.
myself. And this is Jay
You're
Z
Cindy,
Bar.
right? No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
I think I'm Cindy. Hi, Bob.
I
He's so funny. I like him. I've been connecting with Jay on Alignable for quite some time now. She's a nutritionist and a health coach, and she's going to talk to us today about healing and also good foods for us fibro warriors, inflammatory foods that are healthy for us. So
am sure
take it
they'll
away,
go with
Jay,
my
and welcome
conditions
aboard.
as well.
Right.
What was it?
What was that again, Susan?
I'm sure they'll go well with my conditions too.
Right, for everybody else, yep, for whatever health situations they have. So go ahead, Jay, and thank you for speaking to our group today.
Sure, I'm happy to. This is one of my favorite things to do. I'm Jay Ziebert. I'm a nutritionist. I basically came to this line of work through saving my own life. And so I struggled for about a quarter century trying to lose weight and, find good health with, basically the latest information that's out there, which tends to be very mixed, and a lot of it is really, really terrible. So when I discovered that I could actually go directly to the science for myself and find studies, well-designed studies that show us the best way to feed our bodies, I did that. And lo and behold, here I am. It was really precipitated by, a serious health crisis. And, my doctor told me I'd be on medication the rest of my life, and I was not okay with that. And so I, buckled down and I slogged through lots and lots and lots of data. And I came to realize that what we're being told is in the general public, and our general recommendations are pretty far from ideal. And so are they terrible? But they do kind of limit us. So the recommendations, the highest level we can reach is about here. But with all of the knowledge, with all, most of the knowledge that we can gain, we have all of this potential that's missing. And one of the biggest things that people suffer with is chronic conditions, either lifestyle related or chronic conditions that, really can't be reversed. So, or there are conditions out there that people believe can't be reversed, that the medical community doesn't believe can be reversed, that potentially could in the future. So my whole strategy, my whole point, my whole perspective is not sugarcoating the truth. So I, just like everybody else, wants a quick fix. I want something that give me a bar, give me a pill, give me a drink, give me something that just fixes everything where I don't have to worry about it. Unfortunately, those have all been proven to be not reliable. And a lot of times they've proven to be harmful. One of the most important things to recognize is when we have an ongoing issue, whether that be chronic pain or any other chronic condition, it really starts to wear on us. And so one of the things we really have to be cautious of is give me anything, I will try anything. And the person that has the fanciest words, has the best graphics, has the best funding behind them, has the prettiest lies to tell you is really, really tempting. So we want to be really, really careful about what we put time into. Because like I said, I went for 2.5 decades of working really, really hard in the wrong direction. Everything that I was told, all of the things that everybody knows, nearly killed me. And so we want to be really, really cautious about what we're taking in. I want you to question everything, question what I'm saying. If you have questions, by the way, I don't mind being interrupted. As a matter of fact, I love a good discussion. I think it breaks up the monotony of you listening to me talk for however long I'm going to talk here. So feel free, if you have something pressing you want to ask or whatever, just give me a little wave and I'll call, and you can click on the buttons in in the sidebar there too. That works fine. So I, discovered all of this stuff in the science, which was actually really clear. There's always going to be outlying studies that say this is, completely contrary to the scientific consensus. But I'm all about what the evidence says. And the consensus is what I teach. The consensus is what I follow. There are going to be some tweaks. There are going to be some adjustments based on the individual person. We're all a little different. My best friend is 5'11" and I'm 5'3", and we have very different body shapes. We have different issues. We have, and we basically, since our teen years, kind of grew up together. And so our lifestyles were kind of similar, but ended up in resulting in different things. And so there is some adjustment, some personalization that needs to happen there. But the basics cover all of us. We're basically all the same kind of animal. We have different minor differences that we need to adjust for. So my thing is telling you the truth. The cool thing about that, though, is, a lot of people get a little bit, before I even open my mouth, they feel a little defensive, right? Because I'm definitely going to tell you stuff you don't want to hear, right? And, a lot of people have this perspective that, well, you're going to take something away from me. I'm not. I can't. That's not something that's possible for me. You are a fully autonomous adult. Nobody here is underage, right? Everybody has the ability to decide for themselves how much of what I tell you you want to take in, how much of it you want to look into, because I highly recommend that as well. You can take, none to, everything and apply it as you will. One of the things I will highly recommend is that you go slowly. One of the worst things for, changes we want to make, lifestyle changes, habit change of any kind, is taking on too much. So go slowly and take what's easy first. That's usually a good way to do it. I will tell you, though, the more that you do, the better that you will feel, and the more you will be motivated to continue. The more you will be you'll get hungry for more. So I am basically lifestyle medicine focus, which is, a holistic look, right? I'm a nutritionist, but this is also about sleep and stress. It's about maintaining a good social network, which you guys are doing right here. Good job. It's about having your support system. We're 10. I love that. I love, us, vertically challenged people need to stick together. So it's really about the whole picture. It's about the whole picture. Has anybody heard of the blue zones?
No.
Blue zone? Yeah. I'm a big fan of blue zones. I'm a big fan. It's about the whole life picture. What are people in the world, groups of people who are doing really well, living really long, but also really well? Remember, there's a difference between lifespan and health span. You can live a long time and not be healthy during that time, right? So we want long health span. That's what we want. So where in the world those people are living, what are they doing? It's not all exactly the same either, but there's some common themes. So all of the consensus, that's what I like to talk about. So today I want to talk about inflammation. That's a big one, right? That's very much tied to a lot of chronic diseases, a lot of them. But tied to that, I want to talk about gut health. So has everybody heard of the microbiome? That's pretty much a subject that's gotten out there. It's still an emerging science. So if anybody is out there saying they know everything about the microbiome, that is a red flag, because it is an emerging science. We don't know everything about the microbiome. The more that we learn, the more interesting, the more frankly fascinating and amazing that gut, the body connection to our gut is. Those trillions of little buddies that live in our gut feed us in so many different ways, and so we have to make sure we feed them. So I want to talk about that today. So inflammation, I'm going to give you a few keys that are specific to fibromyalgia. If you're not a fibromyalgia sufferer and you have something else you want to ask about, I'm happy to share that as well. But though, I have a handful that I want to specifically call out for fibromyalgia, but we are going to get into, I have a few slides. I'm not going to overwhelm you with slides, but I feel like they give direction and they're pretty pictures. So any questions or thoughts before I pop into that? Feel free to ask questions anytime. If you want to pop them in the chat or just wave your hand, anything is fine. So let me go ahead and start my screen. All right, has that loaded for everyone? Okay, good. I can see a few at the bottom here, but just let me know. Go, hey, if I haven't answered your wave, give me a little something so that I know. All right. So we know that, or maybe you don't know this, but the gut microbiome, the microbiome that lives in your lower intestine, there are more cells in that collection than there are cells in your body by count. So there are a lot of little friends down there that we need to take care of. I kind of like to think of them as our pets, right? You don't feed them, things are not going to go well, right? We want to make sure that they are nourished and then they feed us back in so many different ways, which we're going to talk about. There we go. So again, remember, this is an emerging science. Anybody out there claiming to know everything? Red flag. We live with trillions of these microbes. Now there's some that are not good. We have one of the most important things about them is your variety and your balance. So there are bad ones and there are good ones. We want to feed the good ones and starve the bad ones, obviously. But the balance is key. We don't want too many of one kind of good one. That's really important. What is the best food for these little buddies, the good ones? It's the most neglected nutrient it's the least sexy. It is not really any fun unless you do it properly. If you're not having fun in your health journey, you're not doing it right. So come talk to me if you're having struggles with making your health journey fun. But fiber is the most neglected nutrient and the most important. Usually I ask the question, what do you think is the most important nutrient? And very often the answer is protein, and that is absolutely not true. Most people take in double what they should be taking in, and that's not good for you. Remember, some is good. That doesn't necessarily mean more is better. So you got to watch everything you take in. Oxygen, water, everything has a toxicity level. You can drink too much water. You can kill yourself with too much water. It's really hard to do, but people do it. It's called water intoxication. So you really want to be mindful that just because some is good does not mean more is better. We want to take in what is recommended by the scientific consensus and not 3,000% of our recommended intake. So again, the key to a healthy gut is the diversity and the balance. That's why the most recent studies have shown in most instances, there are some recommended situations where this is not true, but in most instances, taking a probiotic supplement is not that good of an idea. So unless you have some specific acute issues, sometimes that's recommended. You just want to be really careful about supplementation of any kind. We'll talk a little bit about supplementation in a minute. So the idea is not to have too many of even a good one. We want balance, diversity and balance. So what are the risks of being out of balance? It's called dysbiosis. Big words are fun. So obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorders, and inflammation. Basically what most of us in this country are suffering with, and Canada too. We want to recognize what things we can impact. I want to give you some good news right now. You can dramatically change your microbiome in about 2 weeks. Remember though, that your microbiome, your microbiota, the actual microbes were seeded, you were seeded with them when your mother gave birth to you. How she gave birth matters. So that colony you start with is going to be different for everybody. But there are things that you can do to dramatically impact that hugely in as little as a couple of weeks. So it can impact weight, definitely hormones. Absolutely. Remember, the hormones are the generals of the body. So they're regulating everything. So we want to make sure we're not just talking about, female and male hormones. We're talking about all kinds of hormones here, and they are regulating all sorts of things, including things like blood sugar, etc. So it can impact inflammation, huge. This is a big one. This is a really big one. If you have food sensitivities of any kind, this can be incredibly strongly tied to the health of your microbiome. Digestion. There are some things that cannot be digested if you don't have the right bugs. Anybody that has trouble with high fiber foods, you've got to build up those good bugs that help you to digest those high fiber foods, because that's what the bugs eat. Most of them, most of the good ones eat the high fiber foods, like beans. And it's absolutely a huge part of your immune system. So approximately 70% of your immune system is in the gut. That's where it lives. So if you have any trouble with, reoccurring infections and things like that, anything that is passed along from other people, that sort of thing, you have troubles with your immune system, healing that gut can make a huge difference. Now, we're talking about the bugs right now, but we're also going to talk about the actual tissues of the gut, because that's really important as well. So what are the things that you can do? Lots of fiber. So the only foods that contain fiber, does anybody know the only foods that contain fiber?
Frozen cereals.
Anything that grows from the ground contains fiber. Anything else does not. The only foods that contain fiber are the ones that grow from the ground. So that is your sort of window to think about increasing your fiber. Those foods that grow. You want to get a nice variety. So think about eating the rainbow, all those beautiful colors, thinking about eating, different, like your cereals and your grains, your starchy vegetables in their whole form, as close to whole as possible. Your, all the fruits and vegetables, all those gorgeous nuts and seeds, all of those really fiber-filled beans, peas, and legumes are absolutely one of the best things that you can eat. Watching out for that stress. Now, maybe we can't change our stressors, but really, really think about it. Maybe you can, maybe a little bit. But we can talk about how we can handle that stress. So there are lots of strategies, more than just your typical stuff. There's lots of things that you can do to manage stress. Laugh. You have a buddy that you can call up that just makes you howl with laughter. That's a beautiful stress management technique. It's also great for pain reduction and boosting your mood. So laughing. Find a comedian that you love and watch it. All their stuff that you have out there. Find something that makes you laugh. Laughter is a huge mitigator of pain. It's an incredible stress reliever, and it will boost your mood and your energy. So think about laughing every day. Exercise. So some of us are limited in what we can do. Whatever you can do, that's good. Whatever you can do. If you have to do chair exercises, that's awesome. One of the cool things about exercise and a lot of these sort of changes that we make, if you feel like you're like, I am the worst, I am absolutely the worst at whatever it is, eating my veggies or, exercising or whatever, that first step you take up from being the worst, the first step is the most powerful. You have the most impact in that tiny little window from terrible to something. So think about that and take power and motivation and joy from that, because that first little bit you do is hugely impactful. So avoiding the harmful foods. Remember that no food is neutral. None is neutral. It is either helping or it's harming. There's some things that are kind of close to the line, but it's either helping or it's harming. So we really want to shift. I'm not saying never eat anything that's bad for you. I am saying shift to the good more. We want to get out of balance in this respect in a good way. More of the good stuff, less of the other stuff. One of my favorite strategies is crowding. So if you don't want to get rid of anything else, because I know a lot of us are struggling with our health where, we can't have that, we can't have this, we can't have the other thing. Try and shift that and say, I don't eat that because, I value me and I think I'm worth giving that up. But also, if you don't want to give anything else up, consider just increasing the good stuff, because it naturally crowds out the bad in a physical way and in a health way, because the more good you do, the more you give your body what it needs for healing, restoration, peace, and all that, the less harm that's being done. So you feel better. All right, any questions so far? I'm going to stop share just so I can see your beautiful faces for a second. Any questions or thoughts about what we've gone over so far? Anything?
Well, I'm listening to this because type 2 diabetes is what I have. So, yeah.
Very good. Okay. Um, beans, beans. So one of the things that we learn in the blue zones, so they're these areas of the world where they live very, very different.
Excuse me.
But what are the commonalities? Why are these people living in their hundreds and still, walking up mountains to visit their friends every day? Like, why are they living so well so long? Thank you, Ron. That's absolutely true. We're going to go over that. So why do these people live so long? Why do they live so well? Why are they so vital into their older years? What are the commonalities? And they found basically 9 of them. They found a whole bunch of commonalities, but in the research, there are 2 data points that are at the top of the list. And the first one is not food. I know that's a surprise, but the first one is social connections. It's about your support system. It is about connecting with your chosen community. The second one is beans. So we want to get in at least a cup of beans a day. And if you're not a champion bean eater, you're going to want to increase that slowly. Remember, we need those bugs in order to help us digest those beans. So increase it slowly, stay hydrated, move your body, increase slowly. Beans. One of the best things you can do to help control blood sugar is increase your fiber. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, I know. I tried.
Good.
But
I'm glad you know that. So when you say, what is it that you struggle with in order to get that in?
well, I don't know. I basically have my cereal in the morning
Okay.
when I take my pills, and then I don't eat a lot of bread, so I know that gets rid of fiber. And I don't really like beans, although I know I'm supposed to eat them. And also, they would tell me, like the nutritionist, is like stick to a Mediterranean diet, like eat lots of fish and that. And yeah, my weakness, I think, though, is chocolate and potato chips and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and not eating a balanced meal, which I know is a no-no.
But so we want to just really watch out for that saturated fat. And the trick is when people say, well, I don't like vegetables or I don't like beans. I teach a cooking class because here's the thing, I'm not a chef, but I love food. And so the trick is I have a recipe for you that I might change your mind about beans is
Okay.
chocolate hummus. And it's absolutely gorgeous.
Chocolate
And
hummus?
it's a chocolate hummus. It's a
Oh,
way to get
never
in your
heard of that.
beans that doesn't feel like suffering.
I like hummus, so that's a
Good.
good
Hummus is
point.
fantastic. Hummus is beans. The beautiful thing about hummus, too, for those of us who aren't champion bean eaters,
Right.
is blending things. It's kind of like pre-digestion, and so you make it easier on your system to take in more. And so hummus is gorgeous. Just watch out for the added fats, but absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I bought some yesterday, and I had some like on what's that, Melba toast. I spread it on the Melba toast.
Wonderful. So there are so many things that are considered part of this bean category that people don't actually think of. It's really beans, peas, and legumes. So garden peas, your free frozen green peas, those are absolutely part of that group.
I don't like those.
You don't like those, okay? Do you like lentils?
It depends.
Okay.
Like sometimes I'll eat them and other times I won't. Like with peas, when I was growing up, we grew up at a cottage and then we later moved into the cottage, of which since my sisters moved back. But we had a garden all the time, every summer. And me with peas, I would eat peas, but they had to be fresh right out of the garden. Go and pick the pod, split the pod, and then eat them like that way. I can't eat them cooked to this day. Like, but the funny thing is, I can eat pea butter. I hate peanut butter. I can eat peas, but I hate I mean, I can eat peanuts, but I can't stand peanut butter. But I like all other kinds of butter, like cashew and sunflower and pea and whatever.
Okay.
Which not sure if I have them right now. I think I do, but anyway. But yeah, and I need to go back to doing stuff like that, and I keep, and you're reminding me. And I never thought of, you know, like I know what hummus is made of, but I've never
Right.
thought of it being as legume based until you said something.
Well, I'm glad I reminded you of that. One of the things that's really important to recognize is that there are over 100,000 species of plant that we can eat.
Right.
100,000 species of
Yeah,
plant. And
exactly.
so I live with a picky eater. I work with a lot of people that have, sensory issues or, sensitivities in terms of, how healthy their gut microbiome is. There's a lot of room to groove here. And it's really all about finding those key delicious recipes that, help you to achieve, your base nutrition, getting nourished. And that's really the idea of prioritizing your nourishment. That is the trick. Again, it's not about, I'm never going to have chocolate again, although there are benefits to chocolate. It's about finding a way. I have so many ways I eat chocolate that are healthy, right? Because I'm obsessed with chocolate. So it's really about finding those recipes and those strategies that allow you to prioritize your nourishment and give you pleasure and joy, because there should be pleasure and joy. If they are missing, that's going to be really hard to maintain long term. So, there's always a way. There's always a way. I know somebody that doesn't eat anything green, right? There's a way to get it done. I promise. It's just about finding those strategies.
Right.
Okay. So I'm just going to go into the chat because I noticed there's a few people. Yes, we are less than half human by number. Obviously not by volume, but by number. The difference between a probiotic and prebiotic, we're going to get into that. But a prebiotic is basically what feeds the pros. So the pros are the actual, think about, professional athletes. The pros are the ones that are doing the work. And pre's and posts, those are outside of the pros. They're either what is feeding the pros, which are the pre's, and the posts are the results of what feeding the pros are. So I'm going to give you a better graphic so that if you're a little confused by that. So gluten-free, the only people that should be eating gluten-free are people that have celiac or have sensitivity. There's a risk to eating gluten-free. You got to be really, really careful. You might have, if you're finding that you feel better, off of gluten, you might actually have a sensitivity related to wheat or something specific. And so you just want to be really, really careful. Anytime we restrict a whole area of, generally considered healthful food, we want to have a really good reason for it. And so one of the things that can happen with a gluten-free diet is we're eating more highly processed foods, right? We're looking in that gluten-free section, it's all processed junk, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're eating, your whole grains that are gluten-free, then go for it. Do what you got to do. If that makes you feel better, then do it. But we want to just make sure that we're nourishing ourselves really well. We're not hamstringing ourselves by excluding a whole, aspect of food that could be providing us nourishment. We got to find it in other ways if we can't get it there. All right, social connection before food. So yes, absolutely, Ron. So food is the number one risk factor for the lifestyle risk factor for death and disease in this country. It used to be smoking, now it's diet. So diet has surpassed smoking as the thing that's killing us the most here. So we really want to make sure we're doing that well. And it doesn't have to be miserable. That's really, I want to, really drive that home, because it really, really does not have to be miserable. And there is a way to do it in a joyful and pleasurable way that doesn't make you feel like you're missing anything. As a matter of fact, you'll be so glad that you have replaced, well, I call it upgrading certain foods with others, because you will not believe the difference that you can feel. One of the things we have to recognize is that this is a whole unit. This is a whole unit. We divide it up. We divide it up into, brain, lungs, heart, neurological, cardiovascular. We divide it up. But everything that you do, everything that you take in, impacts everything. it impacts your whole system. And so we want to take a holistic approach to your nourishment, your mental well-being, and your physical, your actual, your muscle structure and whatever. You want to look at it holistically. You want to make sure that you are maintaining that social network, and it has to be a healthy social network. So what do I mean by that? So frankly, okay, this might be a teensy bit controversial. Are you ready for it? Frankly, if you have family members that are toxic or are draining or are abusive or are harmful to you, that is not required for you to be in your life. So consider those relationships on long-term relationships that might not be helpful for you anymore. We want good social networks. We want that network of people that are supporting us in all the ways that we need to be supported. And that relationship is reciprocal, that we're supporting them because that's good for your health too. So that two-way street is so beneficial. We want to make sure that we have those people in our lives that I need to turn to this person for this. I need to turn to this person for this. This person comes to me for this kind of support. That is crucial to good health for so many reasons. So sugar. Let's talk about sugar for a minute because it's incredibly inflammatory, Does that mean that all kinds of sugar are? So I want to recognize something here. The most important organ to look after is our brain. That's the most important one, right? We gotta look after the brain. The brain requires glucose to function properly. It's really mostly the only thing the brain eats. There are minor exceptions. So we need to feed our brain. Our brain takes 20% of the energy we consume and is only, a few percent of our actual, body composition. So we really want to make sure we're feeding the brain, and it's got to have glucose. So where does glucose come from? Glucose is basically sugars in the blood. Yeah. So I want to differentiate between sugar, glucose, and processed, refined things that are sugar. So anything that does not contain fiber, basically, is a sugar that we want to really avoid as much as possible. So the white table sugar is one of the worst. High fructose corn syrup is worse. But those are, really definitely avoid those at all costs. So what does that mean? We already know we shouldn't be eating a ton of processed food, right? We already know that. That's not news to us. That's where most of the sugar and the high sodium live. That's where they live, in those processed foods. So we need that chocolate hummus, by the way, takes 3 minutes to make. But it's better if you make it. And taking a little bit of time to really take control over what's in your food is incredibly powerful. There are ways around that. If you're absolutely physically incapable of making your own food, there are ways around that. But what is in your food? That's the most important thing that we should know. I am 100% guilty of this in my history. Going, well, lean cuisines, they help you lose weight, right? So I buy lean cuisines, not even looking at what's in them, not even flipping that over and going, so what is in a lean cuisine? What is in this sugar-free ice cream? What is in this stuff? That is one of the most important things that you can do. Flip over those packages. I have a pantry full of packaged foods, but I know exactly what is in them. I know the things that I am trying to make sure I include. And really the simplest answer for that is, if you know what it is, and if it grows from the ground and it comes in its whole form in that packaged food, then that's what we're looking for. We're looking for foods that are recognizable, names that are recognizable, and short lists, unless it's like a whole whack of veggies. Short lists, things that we recognize, and as little else as possible. I have never heard that before, Susan. That is really interesting about celiac. As far as I know, it's genetic, but
yeah,
who knows, right?
And see, I was adopted, so I don't know where exactly it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have an adopted sister who's since found her family, so she kind of knows her genetics, but I don't care to find my family.
Right.
Because my parents and my grandparents, they're all gone. And, when I came into the family, I was 6 months old. So to
Right.
me, they're the only parents I know and the only parents I ever wanted to know
Right.
and whatever. So, I don't know where any of this stuff comes from.
So you actually bring up a really interesting point. So family history is something that is brought up a lot in terms of
Mhm.
in terms of the medical field, in terms of how we treat, and can absolutely give us an indication of risk factors for sure.
Right.
Absolutely, and there are some testing things that you can test for your genetics. Like genes that you might have, like the BRCA gene for breast cancer, things like that. The question is that beneficial? And is there something that you can use, information that you can use in order to improve your health? So that is, outside of my scope of practice. But one of the things I would say is the thing that you can absolutely do is your base nutrition. You absolutely can, if you're physically able to move your body. You're absolutely capable of doing all this basic stuff for your health. And have something that, let's say you've been diagnosed with something. Like if other people in your biological family had type 2 diabetes, that's actually not super relevant in terms of how we manage that.
Really?
Something, there's a lot of people who say, well, everybody in my family has, hypertension. Everybody in my family has high blood pressure. Everybody in my family has diabetes. Everybody in my family has had a heart attack in their 50s.
Right.
But that's not, and I'm actually gonna pull Ron's little comment here into this discussion because I think this is really, really key and important. So Ron says, do we know with certainty why Americans tend towards more obesity than other nations? I want to talk about this just for a moment. So I'm pausing because there's a lot of weeds I could get into here. So I'm going to keep it pretty surface. If you have more questions, I'll answer them. But there is a field called epigenetics. So you have genes. You can't change that. But you can make certain decisions where those genes are upregulated or downregulated, either turned on or off. Like you can literally, Alzheimer's is a perfect example. So lifestyle, even with the nasty Alzheimer's gene, even with that, lifestyle can have a huge impact on whether or not you actually go down that road. Epigenetics is basically what your lifestyle, especially what you eat, but also all the other lifestyle factors, will upregulate or downregulate those genes, upregulate the harmful ones or turn them off. And that can be done, again, in a very short period of time, upregulating cancer genes or downregulating them. This is really hugely impactful. What we do is hugely impactful. There's certain things that we can't help, right? We can't help congenital things. We can't help how tall we are. We have to think about our basic makeup, but there is a lot of stuff that can be changed just by changing what you eat. Most people don't realize how powerful that is, how powerful you can literally make your body hostile to things that we don't want in there. You can make it hostile to cancer, hostile to invaders of different kinds. We can make it hum. We can make it vital. We can make it work really, really well in the areas that everybody else in our genetic circle struggle with based on our decisions. Is there limitations to that? Absolutely. But what is achievable in that zone is pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. So one of the things that's really interesting about Americans and obesity, basically any developed nation and obesity, is immigrants. So if you bring in people into this country where they are, have a traditional diet, usually, underdeveloped nations, they bring their traditional diet with them. They can usually hold out for a generation and a half, maybe, before they are exactly like the rest of the Americans. Because or Canadians. That's why I said developed nations, Australians, like exactly. A lot of us suffering with the same things. Really, lifestyle is huge. It's huge. And one of the things that's happening, which is really heartbreaking, is some of the blue zones that are, increasing their conveniences that are adopting, US kind of habits, they are losing those beautiful blue zone qualities. They're de-blue zoning because they're adopting what it is that we do. Something to think about. So one of those, the things that is such a struggle with, changing what we do is the culture that we live in. I'm sorry, y'all, if you want to be really, really healthful, if you want the best health out of your life, you have to be a maverick. You have to swim upstream a little bit. You have to be contrary to what other people are doing. You have to say, yeah, I know everybody's doing that. That's why I'm not doing it. You kind of have to be a little bit of a rebel in order to really embrace all the aspects of health. It's a really fascinating thing. Let's not get too deep into that, but that's something to think about. Okay, moving through even added sugars, sugar, alcohols. There are lots of names for sugar that are not sugar on those labels. That's why I say if anything is OL, if anything is OSE, OSE, those are sugars. And so if there's anything on that label that you're reading that you don't know what that is, you can Google it, but probably you should just put that back on the shelf. Sugar and salts are huge. Yep. So any developing nation or nation that has been really steeped in tradition, that has started to adopt Western habits of eating and all the other stuff, conveniences is basically mostly what it's about. Their health has started to decline, even after centuries of being, very healthful people. Yeah, any processed. Yes, okay, I love this. Sugar and salt and fat. So we call them the SOSs. The SOSs, watch out for those SOSs, because we sort of have the survival brain, and then we have our logical, decision-making brain. We have our brain that evaluates, kind of our moral compass, our, all of this kind of stuff, right? Our critical thinking brain. Then we have this brain that's kind of deep. I call it the lizard brain. You can call it whatever you want to. It's a lower brain that keeps us alive. And so we can sometimes battle with that a little bit, because evolutionarily speaking, if we didn't have all the conveniences, notice this convenience word keeps popping up. If we didn't have all the conveniences that we have right now, we would have to forage for food, right? So we would have to go out into have a look in your yard and see if there's anything yummy out there for you to eat, right? It would be a struggle to get enough nourishment. And so if you, in that environment, came upon a whole bunch of nuts, for example, you would stuff your face with that, and your brain would encourage you to do that. It would say, yep, we're going to give you some more room for this amazingly, nutrient rich food. So that part of the brain is actually something that some of us, not all of us, some of us really struggle with, because we are introduced to a rich food or a hyper palatable food, a falsely flavorful food, something that's made with like Doritos, something that's made with way too much flavor. It's like overly flavored food. That can trigger our brain. They literally do this on purpose. This is not a conspiracy. They're proud of it. Okay. They trigger us to eat more than we need to eat, more than we want to eat. How do you make more money when we basically eat the same volume every day? By making us overeat. How do they do that? With these hyper palatable foods. And that salt, oil, and sugar, even close to their natural forms, can be triggering as well. So you really got to watch out for those SOSs. Yeah, all the refined stuff. I'm telling you to avoid, which is good. But the most important thing is to nourish. Prioritize nourishing. There's another aspect I'm seeing in the chat here. I'm just plucking out little thoughts, because we got a lot of chatting going on, which is awesome. I love it. There are certain disordered eating habits. I'm not saying you have an eating disorder. I'm just saying that a lot of us have some disordered eating because of the environment that we grew up in. And one of those is overeating. One of the beautiful things is something called calorie density. So calorie density is lowest in basically the foods that are best for us. Cool, right? So we get to be full and nourished. Yay. That's awesome. That's how, when I changed my diet so that I could live, not to lose weight, but I just did it so that I could continue to live, I lost 75 pounds without trying. So it's really about nourishing your body. When you give your body the components it needs, it wants to heal. You know, some of us, especially those of us suffering with a chronic disease, can feel like we are in battle with our body. Our body is attacking us. And in some instances, it literally is. But for the most part, our body wants to heal. And there is a way, even in those situations where, like with an autoimmune disorder, that you can facilitate your body's natural tendency to want to heal. There are ways. I'm not saying you can cure everything. That's not a thing. But you can absolutely give your body what it needs to be better, because that's all we want, right? We're not trying to win supermodel contests here. We just want to be happier. We just want less pain. We want more vitality. We want our body to be able to move. We want fitness. And fitness is not being all muscly with a six pack. Fitness is literally being able to do the things that you want to do. That's all that fitness is. So it's different for everybody. Being happy, that's all we really want. So the question is, I'm telling you all this stuff, and maybe some of it is you're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that you have to eat your veggies. I'm sorry, it's true. But the question is, ask yourself, is it worth it? That's the question. Is it worth putting in the effort? Is it worth making adjustments? Is it worth trying to find recipes that you love with good stuff in it? In my experience, 1,000,000 times over, it's worth it. But you have to decide that for yourself. Love a burrito bowl. Yum. So good. Love it, Joy. Oh, that is so true. Yes. Often you find, and you have to be careful, because often you find if you go back to truly traditional diets, they are full of the vegetables, of the fruits, of the whole grains, of the whole starchy vegetables. They are full of these things, of the beans. They are full of them. Now, if you have to watch though, because like, for example, Mexican food, traditionally does not have lard in it. Not way back. Traditionally, it does not have these things that are all these cheese. That's not traditional, right? This is not part of the traditional diet. If you look at the Japanese diet, it is like 1% fish. Not all fish. Not that fish is bad. I'm just saying that look at what the truly traditional core diets are, and the ones that have promoted health in those populations. It's not this westernized version of those foods. Oh, I love this. So this is definitely something I wanted to talk about. Thank you, Cindy. Really, really, especially for people with fibro. But everybody, absolutely everybody needs to watch out for this. And that is non-nutritive sweeteners. Anything low cal, zero cal, avoid it like the plague. The things that we use it for, it doesn't work for those things, according to the science. It doesn't help with weight loss, and it doesn't help with blood sugar control. What happens in a lot of people when you consume a 0-calorie sweetener, the blood sugar doesn't go up immediately, it goes up later. And so it's sneaky. You don't see it because it gives you a spike later than you're expecting. And so it looks like your blood sugar is even, if you're testing your blood sugar a couple hours after you eat, you might not catch it. And what is happening is your brain is getting really annoyed with you. When you eat something, okay, has anybody ever been hangry? Hangry? You guys have heard this expression, right?
Yes, definitely.
You get shaky, you get a headache, maybe you get nauseated, you definitely get grumpy. There's definitely the grumpies in there. So why is that happening? Is it because you're hungry? It is not. It is literally a withdrawal response. It is a spike crash response. You have given your brain something that at first glance looks like a lot of amazing energy for it. and there is literally nothing of substance in it. And so what happens is, I personify the brain like this all the time, but basically your brain gets really annoyed with you. You're like, I thought you gave me something good there. There was nothing in there I could use, nothing. So you eat something super, super sweet and your brain is thinking, woo, yes, sugar, woo. And then there's nothing in there. Just because this sugar is brown does not mean it's healthful either, right? So one of the things that is really the crucial piece when it comes to something that you're trying to use to sweeten, does it contain fiber? Real fiber from the original source. If it doesn't, then that is a treat. That is not real food. That's not nourishing food. So think about it that way. Now, can you treat yourself and nourish yourself at the same time? You bet your bottom you can. That is how I live my life. That is about eating healthfully, nourishing your body the easiest way possible, the yummiest way possible. I make sweets constantly because I love sweets. Some people are like crunchy people. Some people, everybody has their thing. For me, it's sweets. There is a way to do it without sabotaging your health. You can have all the pleasure without any of the ill effects. There's definitely a link between non-nutritive sweeteners and fibro. What that link is a little unclear, but something to think about. It also, non-nutritive sweeteners are bad for your gut. Your gut does not like them. Nope. Wants the fiber, needs the fiber. Yeah, it kind of is. The lizard brain is kind of like you're a toddler throwing a tantrum. It is, but basically the lizard brain, lets you breathe without thinking about it, keeps your blood pumping. We appreciate the lizard brain. We do. Sometimes we got to battle with it a little bit. Not all of us, some of us. IBS. Yes. Okay. So, got a question here about IBS. Really, nearly any gut issue, can be resolved with healing the gut. Let's go back to the slides just for a minute, because I want to show you a couple of key slides when it comes to healing the gut, because we're not just talking about the microbes, we're talking about the actual tissues of the gut. All right. So people, you've heard of leaky gut, correct?
Yeah.
Everybody's heard leaky gut. Leaky gut is not a diagnosis. It's not a disease. It's not a real thing. It is just a way to describe what is happening to the pore lining of your gut and why, certain things are happening. So a lot of inflammation, you can protect against a lot of inflammation by, firming up that gut lining. So you look at these two images here. We've got our healthy gut lining at the top. You see the junctions are nice and tight. We've got a gorgeous mucus layer on top of those cells. The mucus is created by the good bugs. You've got to have the good bugs in order to have the good mucus, and the mucus is protective. What is going through our digestion, right? By the time it gets to the end, it's the stuff that goes in the porcelain throne. Do we want that leaking into our bodies? No. Do we want that leaking into our bloodstream? No. So that barrier is critically important. What would happen if you injected yourself with any kind of partially digested food? Your body would freak out. It would be like, we have an invader, attack, right? So the key is to keep that barrier healthy so that things that should be passing through are, and things that shouldn't are not. So how do we do that? Again, remember, we need those tight junctions and that beautiful layer, plus the healthy tissues. So we want to eat our greens, the butyrate, the sulforaphane. Those actually heal the tissues, the actual tissues, that long tube that makes up our digestive system with some bulges in it. That helps to heal those tissues. Then we want to not eat things that are damaging those poor cells that line our gut, that it'll start to break down and open up so things are getting through that shouldn't be getting through. We want to make sure we keep those nice and healthy and avoid those things that are doing damage. Then we want to make sure we're feeding our bugs, feed those microbes with those beautiful high fiber foods. That combination of changes to your, the way that you do things can be hugely impactful. So lentils are in here, turmeric. We're going to talk about specific anti-inflammatory foods. Turmeric is, one of the best ones. But just in general, the variety, you can eat turmeric until the cows come home, but if the rest of your diet is trash, it's kind of like putting out a fire with water and gasoline at the same time doesn't really work. Got to have more water than gasoline or else it's not going to go out. All right. Any questions or thoughts about that? Okay, we know that. So protect that lining, protect it. Watch out for those processed foods. Watch out for the high saturated fats. Watch out for artificial sweeteners, emulsifiers, those kinds of things. Watch out for the alcohol. If we have bacteria on our countertop, what can kill that bacteria? Alcohol wipes, right? What does the doctor do before he gives you a shot? Or she gives you a shot? Alcohol. So watch out for that alcohol intake. Used to be that we considered a drink a day for women safe and 2 drinks a day for men safe, which is totally unfair, by the way. But anyways, the bottom line is the safe amount currently recommended for alcohol is 0. It is a carcinogen. It's a cancer causer. It is not helpful. It is doing damage. Am I saying never have a drink again if you like to have a drink? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying realize that it is not a health promoter. And especially for a group we're talking about, generally one of the typical features of is pain. Watch out for your pain meds. Take your pain meds, take them and take them early, because usually you take less when you take them early. But just be mindful that we're going to have to do a little bit of repair work as a result of taking those pain medications. So you want to, again, getting out of balance in a good way, flooding your system with the good stuff so that we can do the work that your body wants to do to heal. Okay, so this is what Ron was alluding to earlier in the couple questions we had. So there are pre's, pros, and posts. So the pre's are what we feed the pros. The pros are the actual bugs. They're the actual microbes. The post is what they feed us. So we feed them the pre's, which are all the high fiber foods, mostly. Then the pros grow. And as we eat things, they help us to digest them. And then they release things like short chain fatty acids. They release things like beneficial chemicals that help us to heal. So these are not it. These are not it. Metamucil, your bugs don't know what that is. That's not food to them. You've got to eat the real food. Something that says it's high fiber that shouldn't be usually has some sort of artificial fiber in it. That is the only time these should be used is in acute problems, ongoing GI issues. Again, ongoing GI issues for the most part can be helped or possibly even reversed. I had, since I was a baby, terrible GI issues. I could not go places. I had pain all the time. It fluctuated, but it was a regular part of my life. There were a lot of foods I couldn't eat, and yet I was still, morbidly obese. I didn't even know. I wasn't even trying to fix that. When I changed what I ate, within a few weeks, after living with it for 36 years, it was just gone, never to return. You can heal the gut. And every person's journey of healing is going to have its own capacity, its own limitations. I'm not saying you can cure everything, but huge when we feed our bodies well. So these right here are pre's and pros. So these are, especially the fiber ones, so the sauerkraut and the pickles, those are pre's because they're the fiber-filled foods, right? But they're also pros because they've been fermented. So these these fermented foods actually have probiotics in them. So if you're eating pickles, try and buy the fermented ones. There's a lot of salt in there, so you got to watch for that. But when foods are fermented, our body can handle a little bit more sodium that way because it's so beneficial. A little bit, not too much. If a pickle is on the shelf, if anything is on the shelf, then even if it was fermented, those little bugs are probably dead. Eat the stuff that's refrigerated, that says it has live cultures in it. Those are the fermented foods. And avoid the dairy ones, please. All right, aiming for variety. Okay, I'm gonna stop here because I would like to continue our discussion. I love this. So one of the things that's really interesting about the evolution of the food that we grow is most of the stuff that we eat now, I can't find a seeded watermelon to save my life, right? So, and the foods that have seeds in them are actually a little bit more helpful. If you're eating your fruits and veggies, I'm happy. But the ones that have the seeds in them are actually more nutritive. So something to think about. The older versions of a lot of foods that have been hybridized are actually less nourishing, just a little bit. So like Susan was saying earlier, if you can grow your own food, that is a huge power move. But I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if it's organic. I don't care anything like that. If you're getting in your fruits and vegetables, I'm happy. If you can, if you have the capacity, the room to think about upgrading to the next level, there's always more that we can do. There's always more. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for finding foods that are even more powerful. Broccoli's awesome, right? I mean, it's crazy healthy for you. But have you ever eaten broccoli sprouts? Those are as close as you can come to a superfood. There's no such thing as superfoods, but those are as close as you can come. When we're talking about protein, so protein is something that we are incredibly obsessed with, which is really interesting because if you're getting enough food, to maintain your weight, if you're a healthful weight, you're getting enough food, you're getting enough protein. Unless you're eating one thing, which is, really disordered eating, you're getting enough protein and you're getting all the amino acids that you need. All plant foods contain all 9 amino acids. That has been completely and thoroughly debunked. The highest protein, so, when I'm talking about highest protein, I'm usually specifically talking to somebody who's had gastric bypass surgery or somebody that's over the age of, 65, 70, that's struggling to get in enough food. Sometimes that can be an issue later on. If I'm thinking specifically about high protein foods, it's the beans. Greens, dark leafy greens, are also percentage wise pretty high in protein, but those legume categories, the beans, peas, and lentils, those are the trick when it comes to making sure you're getting in your protein. People that eat no animal products on average get more than the recommended daily intake. Something to think about. And Americans tend to get twice as much as they need. Remember, just because some is good does not mean more is better. Too much protein is not good for you. If you have any kidney issues, you're going to want to watch how much protein you're taking in. So it's really, really interesting. So I've worked with a lot of healthcare professionals. One of the lifestyle medicine focus, you can become board certified just like any other medical specialty in lifestyle medicine. So one of my favorite docs, I have a bunch that I love, but one of my favorite docs, if she has somebody that comes in that doesn't eat, that eats a predominantly plant-based diet, she's not worried about colon cancer. She still has them tested, but she's not worried about it. Or non-alcoholic fatty liver. Most people are suffering with non-alcoholic fatty liver in this country. And I've actually had people come to me that say, oh, my doctor told me everybody has it. Everybody has it because of the way that we eat. Doesn't mean it's good for you. So you can actually get cirrhosis of the liver, never having had a drink, just because of the way we eat. You can actually completely destroy your liver that way. So watch out for what are the best preventative things that you can do for colon cancer? For cancers of most kinds is those high fiber foods again. Colon cancer especially. Dairy is not your friend. Okay, question. How many of us are baby cows? Okay, wait, oh, I got one more. How many of us are still breastfeeding? No, none of you? We don't need to consume milk beyond being weaned. Now, we like it, so we drink it, but it's not good for us. It's not a good source of calcium. It has a ton of calcium in it, but it's not a good source of calcium. What do I mean by that? One of the things that people say all the time is you are what you eat. But I like to modify that just a little bit and say, no, you're actually what you absorb. Let's say you have a leaky gut, but you eat perfectly. During that time your gut is healing, you are not absorbing all the good things, right? If you lack the ability to digest certain kinds of proteins or sugars, like lactose, lactose is a sugar, you're not going to be gaining the benefit of that lactose. You're not going to be gaining it because you're lactose intolerant. And lactose intolerant is not a disease. It's a natural part of the growth process. As a matter of fact, most of us lose the ability to digest lactose around 18 months. That starts to decline because we're supposed to be eating solid food. So I drink milk all day long. I just don't drink it from an animal. I love milk, but watch out for that dairy. So there's beautiful yogurts out there. And they've, especially the ones that have the live cultures in them. Yum. Look for the coconut almond varieties. Highly recommend. Okay, so the FODMAP diet. This is interesting as well. Remember we were talking about the gluten-free diet? FODMAP, same thing. Now, some people that have acute gut issues, what they'll do is something that's called kind of an elimination diet. So an elimination diet can be super helpful for those of us who have terrible gut issues. We can figure out what is the culprit, what's causing the most problems. Again, that a lot of times can be healed unless you have a true allergy. So for example, before I changed my diet, I couldn't eat tomatoes anymore. I was allergic to mushrooms. I healed that, unintentionally healed it. And now I can eat tomatoes all day long. I can eat mushrooms. I can eat a bowl full of mushrooms. Cook your mushrooms. Don't eat your mushrooms raw, please. So the low FODMAP diet, if it is implemented, it should be done under the care of a healthcare professional and wherever possible, only temporarily, because you are eliminating a plethora of absolutely fantastic nutrients when you eliminate those FODMAP foods. So just be careful about that. Anytime we're eliminating whole sections of typically healthful foods, scientifically proven, consensus proven, healthful foods, we want to be doing it for a really good reason and hopefully temporarily, just while we heal. Yeah, I know, I've heard of them. They are shysters. If you sign up on their website, they're really, really shady. You got to watch out for these people. Listen, try this. Whenever somebody is telling you exactly what you want to hear, run away. Because frankly, it's the people that are not telling you exactly what you want to hear that are probably telling you the truth. That is a mega huge red flag. So let's talk about, like, for example, keto. So the keto diet is something that was designed by doctors to treat children that had uncontrolled seizure disorders. That was the purpose of the keto diet. Literally, it changes the way your brain functions. Think about that for a second. The only reason they fed these kids that diet is because medications did not work. Some kids responded to this dramatic, drastic keto diet. What happened? Eventually they had, like kidney problems and stuff like that. So it's not a health plan. It's like medicine. And every single medicine, no matter how awesome it is, has side effects. So if you're doing anything that is drastic. Eating only one kind of food or anything really, really drastic. I don't even really advocate for raw diets. Some people are, oh, he popped back in. Some people can see a lot of healing in raw diets. Look up Dr. Brooke Goldner if you're interested. She's all about autoimmune disorders. And she advocates a healing protocol, but she eats cooked food. The problem is when you're eating only raw, you are missing some potential nutrients. So people say, well, should I eat my greens raw or cooked? And I say, yes, because when you cook things, you make other things more bioavailable. So eat your greens raw, absolutely, but also eat some that are cooked because it makes more things bioavailable to us. So it's really, gotta watch out for those really drastic things. And there's always a latest thing. There's always a latest thing. Think about the decades of your life. Go back, the 80s, it was fat-free. Everything was fat-free, right? And then they just loaded it with sugar, right? About 5 years ago, it was coconut oil. You know, like there's always a thing. Right now, it's salt. Hypertension is the leading risk factor for the thing that kills most of us. So really, really watch out for your salt intake. You should be limiting your salt. There are exceptions to that, but they are not the norm. So watch out for your salt intake. And most of your salt is not coming from the salt shaker. It's coming from the processed foods. So you eliminate the processed foods, you're, solving two problems at once. Best plant foods for energy? That's a great question. I just did a whole talk on energy the other day. Anything that is a whole food carbohydrate. So if you want a quick pick-me-up of energy, fruit. If you want lasting energy, something with a little bit more fiber. So combination, a beautiful balanced meal with your balance is gonna depend on the person, but basically we want protein, carbohydrates, and non-starchy vegetables. So if you're trying to heal, you want half of that plate non-starchy vegetables. And then a quarter of it, some sort of whole grain or whole starchy food. Eat those peels if you can. And then, a quarter of your plate, some sort of plant-based protein. I'm not advocating for 100% plant-based. I'm just saying that's the best nutritive buck for your caloric dollar there, right? That's where you're going to get most of your nourishment from. We already know this. We don't want to hear it. We already know we should be eating our veggies. Why should we? Why do we have to make sure we get vitamin C? Our bodies don't make vitamin C because we're not lions. Lions make their own vitamin C. We need vitamin C. If we don't get vitamin C, we get scurvy, right? So there's a couple of questions around salt that I always get. What if you have a thyroid issue? What if you're lacking in iodine? There are better ways to get your iodine. If you have any sort of hypertensive issue, you got to watch the sodium and the saturated fat and the processed foods, but the sodium primarily. Got to watch out for it. That was my issue. I had stage 4 hypertension at 35. My doctor told me that I had stroke level blood pressure at 35, keeping in mind that the previous 25 years I had spent way too much time working on eating a healthful diet. And then I was 35 years old with stroke level blood pressure. We are being misled. You gotta keep those antennae up. Question everything that comes out. If it looks fun, if it looks, if it's appealing to you, if you're like, oh yeah, I gotta get me some of that. That is a red flag. Watch out. The supplement fitness industry is mega bucks. They are not trying to heal you. They are trying to create return customers. Exactly. So you got to watch out for yourself. I'm sorry. I wish the world was better than it is, and I'm trying to make it so, but got to advocate for yourself. Keep those antennae up. The thing is, when people adopt the keto diet, they will oftentimes, not often, regularly enough that it's a question, they will see changes, good changes in their biomarkers. They will see certain things come down, certain things go up that should go up, certain things come down that should come down. That is temporary. And most often in those cases, what is happening is that person has eliminated all processed foods. And so, yeah, your body's going to thank you for that. Maybe you're adding more vegetables than you've ever eaten, even on the keto diet. A lot of people that are on the keto diet are actually not in ketosis. It's really hard to maintain ketosis. You actually have to check. There's little kits where you have to, check to make sure you're there. And most people do not stay in that state. The other thing is that what ketosis does is it can sometimes show short-term benefits, like, some weight loss and even blood sugar improvement. But what happens is insulin resistance, because you've increased your saturated fat, because you're not including the natural carbohydrates that your brain and body need in order to function properly. And so you go into a place where you're super carb sensitive. So people that come to me that have been on low carb or keto for a really long time, they come to me and we gradually increase their carb. Even the most healthful ones, we gradually increase them because your body is out of whack. And so we want to bring it back to a balanced state. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you look at the science when it comes to dieting, right, just weight loss, which we're all obsessed with, right, which is not good for us in terms of our mental well-being. And that yo-yo thing, that's really bad for us too. When we look at diets, they all work. If you stick to a diet, it works. What does that mean? That you can temporarily lose weight, because that's what a diet is. It's about temporarily losing weight. Then it doesn't work anymore. Either you can't maintain it or it is not helpful and you actually end up being forced to go off of it, like with keto. The only exception is calorie restriction. Now, anybody in here that has any kind of disordered eating, I want you to plug your ears right now and go la, 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 because this is a dangerous topic, okay? But calorie restriction, long-term, has been shown to have many benefits. But who in their right mind wants to be hungry all the time? Anybody?
No.
I get angry when I think about it because I went hungry a lot. No, you can. Yes, there are benefits to calorie restriction. You still have to nourish your body. Your body still needs things, but keeping your calories low actually has benefits long-term and can have benefits short-term, depending on, certain things can be healed that way. Do we want to live like that though? I don't. And it's dangerous. You gotta be under the care of somebody that knows what they're doing. If you're going to do something like that, I don't recommend it. Lactose-free is not really lactose-free. And it still has all the problematic inflammatory components that dairy has. Dairy is, when people say, what's the top thing that I should get rid of? Sugar and dairy. This is the top. Sugar and dairy. If you want to eat, meat or whatever, do you realize it's not on the side of helpful, it's on the side of harmful. Do what you got to do though. It's your life. But I'm saying that dairy is one of those things I highly recommend to everyone to just go ahead and boot that sucker right out. Yeah, if you're a coffee drinker with milk, realize that coffee has health benefits, right? We know this has health benefits. And the more that we learn about coffee, the more we learn has health benefits. Some of us who have GI issues can't tolerate it. I had to quit my beloved coffee. I drink green tea now. But I definitely advocate for those of you who love coffee. You put sugar in it, it's basically crack. You put milk in it and you negate most of the health benefits, especially animal milk. You can put plant milk in it, but animal milk, you put animal milk in your coffee and you've negated most of the health benefits of your coffee. Coffee has a lot of antioxidants, a lot of good stuff in it. It's been shown to be potentially protective for brain health, for dementia and things like that. that's a mixed bag there, but it's potential. I mean, worth incorporating. You put animal milk in there though. Try, if you have tried certain kinds of milk in your coffee and you're like, what? Didn't like that. Just, there's a million different kinds of plant milk out there. Try to find the ones that have the least ingredients and that are basically, it's the consistency that you're looking for. Trader Joe's, you guys have Trader Joe's in the East?
Don't
Yeah.
have Trader Joe's here.
So basically there's a, Trader Joe's has a mixture, almond and what is that nut that comes from Hawaii?
Nut.
Macadamia nuts. So it's almond macadamia nut mixture. People love that one. So just try them, try different ones. If you want to make these changes, I am not going to tie you to your chair and force feed you broccoli. That's not going to happen. All I'm doing is passing along what the science shows us is basically the best way to look after this thing we walk around in every day. And what I'm trying to do is just share with you what I have seen in myself and everybody I've worked with that is worth doing. So intermittent fasting, that's an interesting one. Intermittent fasting is just calorie restriction. That's all diets are. They're just restricting your calories in different ways. There is something in the science behind timed eating. Like the more you eat earlier in the day, okay, there's a caveat to this, but the more you eat earlier in the day, the more well used it is. Later in the day, less so. Our digestive system really wants to do some housework while we're sleeping. And if it's busy digesting, it's not doing a great job of that. So digestion slows down and, you know, it can actually cause some problems like reflux and things like that when we eat later in the day. It actually slows down digestion, can cause some, can be attributed to some weight gain issues. If you're trying to release excess weight, I recommend stopping eating a little earlier in the day. So timed eating can be helpful. The other way it's helpful is mentally. So for those of us who have disordered eating and need a schedule, or else we're just going to eat all day long, we need a schedule. That can be really, really helpful. Intermittent fasting, though, in and of itself is just about calorie restriction. Again, there is that caveat of you know, when you eat matters. Now, what I was talking about eating earlier in the day, if you're trying to release excess weight and you are not hungry in the morning, unless you're underweight or having trouble getting enough calories, don't eat. Don't eat when you're not hungry. That's not good for you either. We're all a little bit different in terms of our rhythms. You know, we're not all wake up at 6 and, you know, go to bed at 8:30 people. And that's actually there's actually evolutionary reasons for that. So if you're not hungry in the morning, you're trying to release excess weight and you're getting in your nourishment the rest of the day, then don't worry about eating in the morning. Don't force yourself to eat. But I will say, the earlier you eat foods, the better your body uses them. Well, I have talked a lot longer than I was planning to. Any thoughts or questions? Any more thoughts or questions that folks have? Thank you for inspiring me to want to share more than I had planned.
No, thank you.
Thank you. You've been very interesting.
Ginger, powdered, is even better than fresh. Turmeric, make sure you have it with pinch pepper. It increases its potency by 1,000% or more. Red and purple foods. So all the red and purple foods, fruits and vegetables. Oranges and apples with the peel. Flax, and consider whether you need vitamin D. Go has to be checked. All of these are specific to chronic inflammation disorders, fibromyalgia in particular. And avoid those sugars.
Where's the best way to find simple, whole food, plant-based recipes?
Well, I would be happy to be a conduit for you. I have a bunch on my site, but what I recommend is finding your people out there, your wizards out there that speak to you. There's some amazing wizards out there doing such glorious things. I love Shane and Simple. He has a couple of questionable ingredients, but he's awesome. I love Monkey and Me. They have great recipes on there. Forks Over Knives has some simple basic recipes that are really good. If you put in whole food plant-based recipe for whatever, in your search, you're going to get millions of responses. So it's about finding your people that speak to you. If you love chocolate, sweets, creamy stuff, come talk to me. If you like, it's really about, you like Southern style cooking, go see Shannon Simple. Like, it's really, you got to find your people that speak to you, but I can help. So feel free to reach out. Let me just pop
Thank
up.
you.
I'm just going to put my email in the chat.
I was just typing that, Jay. You must have read my mind. I just said, feel free to provide your info in the chat. And as soon as I posted that, you just said it at the same time. How cool.
Here's the thing. And this is another red flag thing. If somebody is saying you need this supplement, you absolutely need it or you will die, and I sell it, that is a red flag. Red flag. The people that are advocating for holistic health often give tons of their time and information away for free. And I am no different. I have a free group that meets every other week. I have tons of free information. I have tons of videos. I have tons and tons of information if you need it. If you need a little bit of guidance, I don't charge for that. So reach out. If I can help, I will. Because the reason why I do this, which I didn't share at the beginning, which is very weird for me, the reason why I do this is to reduce suffering. That's it. I like it. I like helping people to suffer less. It makes me feel good.
Wow, that was such great information. I'm speechless. I took 7 pages of notes. No kidding.
Oh, wow.
And I think there was some stuff I missed, and I have to go back to the video and write some stuff down.
So this has all been recorded, y'all. You don't mind if you're recorded and then I share the words that you have shared here? Everybody's cool with that. I always like to double check.
I probably
awesome.
won't get hate mail.
What's that, Ron?
I probably won't get hate mail.
Oh, very good. Excellent. I like that.
He's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay, for coming today. And I
Yes,
think
it
you're
was-
part of our group now, so you're a new member. So welcome aboard.
I agree. It was a
Thank you.
great talk, and I learned a lot of stuff that I thought I knew, but turns out I don't. I should know more.
The information is not readily disseminated, and that's why I talk a lot. You notice that I have trouble making my mouth stop because I want to make sure the information is out there.
Right.
If I can help in any way, definitely reach out.
Wow, thank you guys for coming in, and ladies and gentlemen, and Jay, thank
This
you
was
for
great.
speaking today.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
again.